"Why do you hide your eyes, princess?" The question drifted through the vast throne chamber like a soft ember in a cold wind. Unexpected, gentle, unmistakably human. Princess did not lift her gaze. Her silver hair fell like a curtain, shielding her expression from anyone who cared to look, which usually was no one. "Because," she whispered, "no one here wishes to see them." Outside, distant thunder murmured, as though the skis themselves were uneasy. The palace walls trembled faintly with every pulse of violet light that rippled across the horizon. The whispering storm was getting closer, far faster than the empire predicted. The hall was crowded with nobles and advisors, yet might as well have been standing alone. She kept her hands clasped tightly in front of her, hiding the small tremor she couldn't quite control. Across the chamber, Regent barked orders, his voice sharp as cracking stone. Everyone obeyed instantly. No one looked toward the princess. Except the human. Hale stood near the storm monitor console, tools strapped to his belt, his expression focused yet curious. He'd been warned on his first day. "Do not address the princess. Do not make eye contact. Humans are guests, not equals. Stay invisible." But had never been particularly good at following rules writ only to protect pride. Now, as the hall filled with hurried footsteps, clashing armor and frantic whispers, he noticed something no one else did, shoulders tightening in dread at each wave of. She wasn't merely afraid. She knew something. A gust of shimmering air swept through the stained glass windows, carrying a low, humming sound that vibrated in every bone. A few nobles stiffened. One of them muttered, "It's beginning to speak." Glanced at again. For one heartbeat, a strand of hair shifted, revealing a glimmer of her irises, soft, luminous, carrying an ache so deep it startled him. Were those the eyes no one wished to see? Before he could stop himself, stepped closer. Not enough to draw attention, but enough that's breath caught in surprise. She wasn't used to anyone approaching her without command. "Princess," he whispered, keeping his voice low, "that storm, you recognize it, don't you?" She stiffened. A faint pulse of violet flickered across her skin, quickly swallowed back as if she feared anyone noticing. "You should not speak to me," she murmured. "They will not like it." A thunderous crack silenced the hall. Everyone froze. Even Regent turned toward the balcony where the light outside deepened into a swirling river of violet and silver. The storm was forming whisper shapes, echoes of voices calling from distances no living mind should reach. "Time is shorter than expected," one general said. "Hours," another asked. "Less." Panic rippled through the room. And as the chaos mounted, Saw's fingers curl against her gown, anxious, controlled, like she was fighting an unseen force inside herself. Something painful, something she wasn't allowed to express. "Princess," he murmured again, "please, if you know something that can help, someone needs to hear you." "No," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "No one hears me." But did. And in a chamber full of starlit nobility, frantic leaders and people who treated her like a forgotten ornament, that single moment, one human voice reaching toward her, struck her harder than the roaring storm outside. Her breath trembled, her heart ached, and for the first time in years dared to lift her eyes fully. What he saw in them was not weakness, not obscurity, but a quiet, radiant power she had been forced to bury. Before she could speak, the palace alarms erupted with a deafening chime. The whispering storm had crossed the outer shield. Everything would change within the hour. The palace alarm screamed through every corridor, echoing like metallic heartbeats racing toward disaster. Felt the floor tremble beneath his boots as lights flickered in frantic pulses of red and white. Soldiers rushed past, shouting orders, but none of them looked at the princess who stood motionless at the center of it all, eyes glowing softly, as if the storm outside was calling to her. Drew a shaky breath. The moment their gazes had met, something inside her shifted, something she had tried to silence for years. But she couldn't silence the storm, not anymore. Stepped closer to her, shielding her slightly from the swirl of frantic nobles and advisors who brushed past without a second glance. "Princess," he said quietly, "you looked at that storm like you've seen it before. Tell me I'm not imagining that." His fingers tightened at her sides. "You are not imagining it." "Then what is it?" he pressed. A voice boomed across the chamber before she could answer. "Human, step away from the princess." Regent approached, his expression carved from cold authority. His cloak swept behind him like a shadow hungry to consume anything that dared stand in its way. The nobles surrounding him instantly bowed, while the princess went unnoticed as usual. Didn't bow. His eyes narrowed. Humans should know their place. "And what place is that?" asked, unable to control the sting in his voice. "To obey," replied, "not to question, and certainly not to speak to the royal heir unless summoned." Flinched, not at defiance, but at the word heir, a title she was allowed to carry but not to wield. Continued, "Return to your station. We have no need for sentimental distractions. The storm's energy can be measured without conversation." His gaze finally slid toward, cold and dismissive. "And you, princess, remain here. Do not interfere." Hesitated, then gave a single nod, because defying the regent outright would help no one. But as he turned, he whispered to her, "I'll come back. Don't stay silent." His heart tightened at those words. No one had ever said such a thing to her. No one had ever wanted her voice. When left the chamber and vanished into the rushing crowd, she felt a loneliness pierce deeper than usual. The storm hummed louder, whispering, beckoning. Her pulse matched its rhythm. She closed her eyes. She remembered. Flashes, her father's last night before he disappeared into the storm, the violet light clinging to his armor, his final words echoing through her mind. "You must never let them know what you can hear. They will not forgive it." She had been a child, but she had obeyed. A lesser rumble shook the palace. Dust fell from the ceiling. Outside, the swirling storm began forming shapes, shadows of faces, drifting like echoes of lost souls searching for a doorway. And heard them. She heard every whisper crystal clear. The chamber doors burst open again, ran back in breathless. "Princess, the storm isn't just energy, it's interacting with the outer shield. It's responding, like it recognizes something in the palace." His throat tightened. "It recognizes me." Froze what? She looked up, her eyes shining with new resolve and fear. "It has always searched for me, and now it's close enough to reach." Before he could process her words, a thunderous crack tore through the air. The entire palace shook violently. Windows shattered. Cries erupted. The storm had struck the shield directly. A massive, shimmering fracture spread across the sky like broken glass. Grab's hand without thinking. "We need to move now." She stared at their joined hands, startled by the warmth and certainty in his touch. No one had ever reached for her like that. Her voice trembled with something fragile and new. "If the storm reaches me fully, I don't know what will happen." "Then we won't let it take you," he said firmly. "Not while I'm here." For the first time, let herself believe that someone, just one person, saw her worth. And the storm outside roared in answer, as if time itself was running out. The corridors shook with every pulse of the storm as pulled through a side passage, away from the shattering windows and panicking crowds. Violet light spilled through cracks in the walls, humming like a chorus of forgotten voices. Every sound felt alive. Every echo seemed to whisper her name. "Keep your head down," said, guiding her around fallen pillars. Dust drifted through the air like silver snow. "You shouldn't be with me," she whispered. "If they see you helping me, they'll punish you for it." "I'm not leaving you," he replied without hesitation. "I made that choice the moment you looked at me." Her heart stumbled. His certainty felt like warmth in a world that had only ever given her coldness. The palace trembled again. Somewhere far behind them, the throne chamber collapsed into a roar of splintering stone. Flinched, instinctively drawing closer to him. "What's on the other side of this passage?" he asked. "A forgotten wing," she said softly. "No one goes there anymore. My father used to take me there to hide from court duties. It's quiet, sealed off." "Good, quiet is exactly what we need." Yet the storm's whispers followed them, threading through the cracks like curious shadows. Winced as the voices pressed closer, faint, pleading, echoing memories that weren't hers. Memories of others who had been lost to the storm. Noticed her pain. "What is it? What do you hear?" She hesitated, breath trembling. "Voices, thousands. They're not angry, they're afraid, and they're searching for something they lost long ago." He slowed his pace, his grip on her hand tightening protectively. "Does it hurt you?" "Only when I try to shut them out." Her voice softened. "I've shut them out for years." They reached the abandoned wing. The lights were dim. Cobwebs stretched like silver threads across old portraits of monarchs long forgotten. Paused before one portrait, her father tall and calm, his eyes bright with pride and mystery. Looked at the painting, then at her. "You miss him." "Every day." She touched the cold frame. He understood the storm. He said our lineage was connected to it, but he never explained how. And then he disappeared into its light and never came back. Rested a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I'm sorry." "No one ever says that to me," she murmured. "Then they should have." Her breath caught. She stepped back, overwhelmed by the sincerity she wasn't used to receiving. But before she could speak, the storm's glow seeped through a cracked window, spilling into the hallway like a slow, creeping tide. The air thickened, the whispers grew louder, and the shattered shield outside finally gave way. A booming explosion echoed across the city, pulled down as a shockwave blasted through the palace. Stone fragments flew like arrows. The floor shook violently. The storm's energy swirled outside the broken window, curling toward them like a curious, dangerous hand. "Stay behind me," shouted, shielding her. Reached out instinctively, her palm glowing faintly against the violet air. The storm recoiled, as if startled by her touch. Stared. "You repelled it." "No," she whispered. "It recognized me." The swirling light faded back for a moment, hovering in the sky like an enormous, living eye watching her from above. Squeezed her hand. "Then maybe you can stop it." "I don't know how," she said. "And even if I did, will never allow me. He fears what I am." "Let him fear you," said, voice firm, "but don't fear yourself." For a moment, her breath stilled. She felt the truth in his words like a spark lighting the darkness inside her. Then footsteps thundered down the hall. Guards appeared, weapons drawn. "There," one shouted, "the princess and the human." Stepped forward defensively. But's voice rose, soft yet steady. "I won't be silent anymore." And the storm outside responded with a resonant, thunderous hum, like a promise that time was running out. The guards stormed down the dark corridor, their boots pounding like war drums against the cracked marble floor. Instinctively stepped in front of, planting himself between her and the approaching blades. Dust drifted from the ceiling with every tremor of the storm outside. Felt the whispers press against her mind again. Urgent, warning, pleading. "Stand aside, human," the lead guard barked. "The regent has ordered the princess detained. She is to be brought to the central chamber immediately." His breath caught. Detained, why? But she already knew. Feared her connection to the storm, feared the truth she carried. To him, control mattered more than salvation. Didn't move. She's not going anywhere with people who treat her like she's a threat instead of the one person who might save everyone. The guards hesitated for half a heartbeat. Humans weren't known for boldness. Courage threw them off balance, if only for a moment. "She is a danger," the guard insisted. "You don't understand what she is." Stepped forward, voice trembling but strong. "I understand exactly what I am. I'm the daughter of the king who vanished into that storm, and I hear what you choose to ignore." A pulse of violet light flickered beneath her skin. The guards faltered, fear flashing in their eyes. As she whispered, "Let me speak." He moved aside slowly, but he stayed close, ready. Lifted her chin. "The storm is alive, it remembers, and it is searching for an heir, one who can answer its call. That is why it reacts to me, not because I am dangerous, but because I am the only one who can understand it." As if answering her, a distant rumble echoed through the palace. The whispers grew louder, swirling like a haunting wind around the broken windows. The guards exchanged uneasy looks. Then another voice entered the hallway, cold, sharp, unmistakably authoritarian. "Remove her." Regent stepped from the shadows, cloak sweeping like a dark tide, his gaze pierced with icy resolve. "You have hidden your abilities long enough," he said. "Your father's mistakes ended the day he stepped into that storm. I will not allow his daughter to repeat them." His heartbeat throbbed painfully. "My father didn't make a mistake. He sacrificed himself to understand the storm, because he knew it wasn't a curse." Waved a dismissive hand. "Romantic nonsense. The storm consumes everything in its path, and now it comes for us. Your presence only draws it closer." Stepped forward. "You're blaming her for something she didn't create. She's trying to help." His eyes narrowed. "Human, you speak too freely." He gestured sharply. The guards advanced. Swallowed her fear. If they took her now, would lock her away, silence her, and the storm would swallow the entire empire without a single answer. The whispers surged through her, louder, more desperate. She felt them echo in her bones, in her heartbeat. She raised her hand. A shimmering wave of violet light rippled outward like a silent bell, brushing across the corridor. Not violent, not harmful, but powerful enough that the guards froze in place, stunned. Stared. "You controlled it." "No," she said, breathing hard. "It listened to me." His expression twisted with fury. "You are more dangerous than I imagined." "Or more necessary than you ever allowed," she replied softly. Snapped an order, "Seize them both." The guards recovered and rushed forward. Grab's hand, "Run." They sprinted down the hall as blades clashed behind them. The outside followed them like a guiding thread through the darkness. "Where are we going?" called. "The observatory tower," she said. "It's the closest point to the sky. If I can reach the storm from there, maybe I can understand what it wants." "And if reaches us first?" "He won't," said, though fear knotted in her stomach. "He can't." Because the storm itself seemed to guide their steps, each flicker of violet light illuminating a safe path, each whisper urging her forward. Tightened his grip. "I'm with you, no matter what." She looked at him, heart pounding with fear and something fiercely hopeful. and the storm roared outside, as if time was slipping through their fingers. The stairs to the observatory tower spiraled upward in a narrow, dizzying ascent. Each step vibrated beneath their feet as another wave of storm force crashed against the palace, clutched the railing with one hand and hand with the other as they climbed, breathless, driven by urgency that felt like a fire in their lungs. "Keep moving," urged, glancing down the staircase. "They're close." The faint clang of armored boots echoed from below. The guards were gaining. His heart pounded. The storm whispered louder with every floor they passed, its voice threading into her pulse. It wasn't threatening, not to her. It was pleading, calling, like 1,000 forgotten souls yearning for light. At the top, a reinforced metal door blocked their way. Pressed her palm against a small crystalline panel. It flickered, scanned her aura, and unlocked with a soft chime. The observatory tower opened before them, a vast circular chamber with shattered glass walls and a domed ceiling. The poured in unchecked, staining everything purple and silver. Wind whipped through the room, scattering old maps and dusty star charts. Shut the door behind them, sliding a thick steel bar across it. "That'll slow them down." Walked toward the central platform, her steps uncertain. The storm's glow drifted around her like living mist. Stayed close, ready to catch her if she faltered. He said gently, "You don't have to go through this alone." She looked at him, eyes shimmering with fear and fragile determination. "I've always been alone." "You're not anymore." Her breath shivered. The storm hummed, reacting to her rising emotions. She stepped onto the platform. The wind surged, swirling around her in spirals of violet light, shielded his eyes from the brightness. Lifted her face toward the sky. "Tell me what you want," she whispered. The storm responded. A brilliant column of violet light descended, striking the platform with a sound like echoing chimes. It didn't burn. It enveloped her like a memory, warm, vast, sorrowful. Her hair lifted in the wind, silver strands glowing as if woven with starlight. Reached for her. "Are you okay?" Her voice trembled. I hear them all. They're not monsters. They're fragments of minds lost during the first great storm centuries ago. Memories, echoes of people who were never able to return." The wind grew stronger. Eyes widened. "They're searching for the royal bloodline, a conduit, someone who can open a path for them, someone like my father, someone like me." Stepped toward her carefully, fighting the pressure of the wind. "What happens if you answer them?" "I can guide them home," she whispered. "Release them, free them from being trapped between worlds." "And the danger," he pressed. Her breath caught. "If I open myself to them fully, I don't know if I'll come back." His heart dropped. No, there has to be another way. Before she could answer, the door behind them exploded inward. Guards flooded the chamber, followed by Regent, cloak whipping in the wind. "Step away from her," shouted. Flinched, but stepped in front of her instinctively. Glared at him with fury. "I knew you were a threat. Humans always overstep." "This isn't about me," snapped back. "You're terrified because she has power you can't control." Lifted his hand, signaling the guards to attack. Cried out, "Stop, please." The storm reacted instantly. A wave of violet energy burst outward, shaking the entire tower. Guards stumbled back, weapons dropping from their hands, shielded his face as the wind roared with furious force. His voice rose above the chaos. "I won't be silenced anymore." The circled her like an enormous halo, reached for her again, struggling against the gale. "Stay with me. You're stronger than this storm. You're not its prisoner." Her eyes met his, and for a heartbeat, the wind calmed. His voice broke. "You matter, Not because of your power, not because of your bloodline, but because you're you. And I need you here. Something inside her cracked. The loneliness she had carried for years, the silence forced on her, the pain of being unseen, words shattered it. Tears welled in her glowing eyes, but staggered forward, shouting over the wind, "Princess, if you open that path, you doom us all." The storm roared in fierce defiance, trembled, torn between two worlds, the one that ignored her and the one that desperately needed her. And time was running out. The storm raged so fiercely around the tower that the walls groaned, and fractured glass trembled like it might burst inward at any second. Stood in the center of the swirling light, suspended between fear and destiny. The whispers pressed against her mind, hundreds of voices overlapping, pleading, reaching, hopping. Held onto the railing with one hand, bracing himself against the gale as he reached toward her. "Look at me," he shouted over the roaring wind. She tried. Her eyes glowed brilliantly, but they were full of conflict, like two worlds fighting inside her. "They need me. They've been trapped for centuries. They don't understand how to cross back. I can help them." "Not if it costs you your life," he said, climbing the last few steps toward her, even though the storm pushed him back with every movement. Staggered forward, gripping the wall for support. "You foolish girl," he shouted. "Your father destroyed our defenses. His meddling nearly tore this realm apart. I will not let you repeat his mistakes." Closed her eyes as the memory of her father's final moment resurfaced, his silhouette dissolving into the storm, his last look filled not with fear but purpose. She whispered, "He didn't destroy anything. He tried to understand it." The voices surged, threading into her thoughts like glimmering strands of memory, finally reached her and grasped her wrist, grounding her back into the moment. "Listen to me. You don't owe this storm your life." She shook her head, tears floating into the wind like tiny sparks of light. "But if I don't open the path, the storm will consume everything. These souls don't know how to stop themselves. They're desperate, lost. I'm the only one who can guide them." Stepped closer, his voice trembling but firm. "Then guide them, but don't give yourself to them. There's a difference." Her breath faltered at his words. He understood her, not the storm, not the power, her. A heavy blast struck the tower. The floor trembled violently, stumbled and nearly fell as cracks spread across the ceiling in jagged, dangerous lines. The brightened until it was almost blinding. "Princess," a guard cried out fearfully, "the tower can't hold." The storm whipped harder, tugging at his hair and gown, tightened his grip, refusing to let go. "You're stronger than you think. You can connect with them without losing yourself. Trust your own strength." She met his eyes, and something steadied inside her. For the first time, she believed she was more than a forgotten princess, more than a silent heir. She was someone who could choose her own path. His voice softened despite the chaos. "I'm right here with you. I won't let go." Her heart surged. She lifted her free hand toward the raging sky. The storm responded instantly, spiraling around her in a vortex of shimmering violet. But now, instead of pulling her away, the storm seemed to pause, listening. Exhaled shakily. "I hear you," she murmured to the voices. "All of you. I will open the passage for you, but you must not take me." The wind stilled, just slightly, just enough to sense hesitation in the storm's heartbeat. Watched with fear twisting his expression. "You can't control it. You will kill us all." "No," she said softly. "I'm not controlling it. I'm guiding it." She placed her glowing palm over her heart, then stretched her hand outward. A beam of brilliant light shot from her fingertips into the core of the storm above the tower. The swirling vortex shuddered, expanded, and then began forming a shimmering arc, a doorway woven from memory and starlight. The whispers softened. Souls brushed past her mind gently, grateful, hopeful. Steadied her as the ground shook harder. It's working, you're doing it. But the effort pulled at her energy like a tide. Her knees weakened, caught her before she fell. Stay with me, he whispered fiercely. She leaned into him, trembling. I can feel them crossing through, but it's draining me, I need. A sudden blast shattered the floor behind them. Had drawn a resonant blade, its edges glowing with unstable power. His voice broke with desperation. If the princess won't stop, then I must end this myself. Moved in front of instinctively. The storm roared in fury. Time was running out. Lunged forward, his resonant blade humming with dangerous energy. Grabbed a broken metal rod from the floor and intercepted the strike, the impact sending a shower of sparks across the trembling tower. The force pushed him back a step, but he held firm, jaw clenched, eyes blazing with determination. You won't touch her, shouted. Weakened but still conscious, forced herself upright. The storm's glow swirled protectively around her like a living shield. She could feel the souls crossing through the passage she'd opened, each one brushing past with gratitude, like warm memories drifting through a cold room. But the passage was still unfinished. She couldn't let it collapse. She whispered, I have to keep the gateway stable just a little longer. I've got you, he said without looking back, blocking another strike from. His face twisted with rage and fear. You have doomed us all, princess. Your father tore open the sky, and now you repeat his folly. I will not watch this empire fall because of your childish hope. It's not hope, said weakly. It's mercy, something you lost long ago. Snarled and swung again. Barely deflected the blow, the metal rod vibrating violently in his hands. She's saving us, shouted. You're too blinded by fear to see it. The storm roared overhead, almost as if agreeing. A massive crack split across the tower's ceiling. Chunks of stone rained down, shielded with his body as debris crashed around them, dust and wind mixing in a violent storm of their own. His energy faltered, the gateway flickered. No, stay open, she whispered, pressing her hand to her chest. Just a little longer, please. The storm answered with a soft, warm pulse, encouragement, not force. Saw her moment of weakness and charged again. Barely managed to intercept him. Their weapons clashed with a painful metallic echo that rang through the tower. Why are you fighting for her, human? Snarled. What is she worth to you? Gritted his teeth. Everything. The single word stunned. Everything. The storm stilled for a heartbeat, as if listening. Pushed back, planting himself between him and the princess. His arms shook, his breath labored, but he didn't move. She matters, said through clenched teeth, more than you will ever understand. Felt something ignite inside her, something fierce, something alive. Not just because he said the words, but because he meant them. She rose to her feet again, despite the exhaustion threatening to pull her under. She said softly, her voice steadying as power gathered around her, this ends now. Her eyes glowed brighter than the storm. Turned toward her, blade tightening in his grip. You think you can command this power. You are a child playing with lightning. No, she said. I am the heir who listens, and you are the regent who never learned. With a breath of strength she didn't know she had left, extended her hand. The storm responded instantly. A wave of violet light erupted around her, not destructive but decisive. It struck like a shock of pure force. He staggered backward, his blade clattering across the floor. The energy pinned him against the far wall, holding him suspended, astonished. Stepped forward, every inch of her shimmering with You ruled through fear, she said, but fear ends today. His eyes widened in helpless fury. You know nothing of ruling. I know enough to choose compassion over control, she replied. Another pulse of power flowed from her palm. The storm wrapped around, binding him, not hurting him but containing him, until the guards, trembling, finally stepped back, understanding the truth in front of them. The princess they had ignored had saved them. Behind, the shimmering gateway began to close as the last of the lost souls crossed through. The storm's whispers softened into gratitude, a warm, final sigh of peace. Her knees buckled just as the portal sealed, rushed forward, catching her before she fell. You did it, he whispered, brushing wind-tangled hair from her face. It's over. Leaned into him, exhausted, trembling but alive. I only made it through because you were with me. He smiled, breathless with relief. I'm not going anywhere. The storm outside calmed into gentle light, drifting like soft dawn across the sky. For the first time in her life, felt seen. Not as a forgotten princess, not as a vessel of strange power, but as someone whose worth had finally been recognized by one human who chose to take her hand when everyone else turned away. And as the light settled over them, she realized something simple and extraordinary. She wasn't alone anymore.